We are in the early 90s. The practice of deep stops is still marginal, but a strange article will contribute to making it popular. Richard Pyle is a scientist at the University of Hawaii. He conducts research on deep corals and bony fish. He regularly dives to depths of 60 meters to collect specimens of the species he studies. During some dives, not necessarily the deepest or the longest, Pyle experiences intense fatigue, sometimes to the point where he nearly falls asleep on the way back. The only common factor is whether or not he catches a fish. If Pyle brings up the fish he has caught, he must stop during the ascent to puncture its swim bladder and prevent it from dying. This stop, which lasts a few minutes, usually occurs between 35 and 40 meters. Pyle assumes that this stop improves the safety of his decompression. Most deep divers have the habit of stopping at the level preceding the one displayed on their dive computers, and even recreational divers increase their depths when sea conditions make a stop close to the surface uncomfortable. Pyle relies on Young's work to propose a somewhat convoluted procedure, which involves stopping the ascent at a depth equivalent to half the difference between the bottom pressure and the first stop shown on his dive computer. He is aware that his dive computer will consider that he continues to saturate during this deep stop and will increase the decompression time, but he believes that this extension is of no significance compared to the benefits of a deep stop. In 2004, an international study led by Dan demonstrated that a deep stop significantly reduces bubble formation. The authors calculated that this result is linked to a lower nitrogen tension in the shorter compartments. Bubble measurements were taken after immersions at 25 meters for 20 or 25 minutes of exposure to the maximum pressure. Dives that included a 5-minute stop at 15 meters result in a lower bubble count. This study contradicted the preliminary results established by the French Navy. The tables used by the French Navy present a higher risk in the range 45-60 meters. The French Navy logically sought to assess the contribution of a decompression protocol that included a deep stop. The study was interrupted after a bend, and the authors did not deem it necessary to publish their results. In response to the controversy, the French Navy ultimately published their findings in 2005. The conclusion of the study is simple. After 20 minutes of exposure at 60 meters, followed 3 hours later by a second dive of 15 minutes at 50 meters, a stop at half the maximum depth does not reduce bubble levels. On the contrary, the appearance of high and prolonged bubble levels during repetitive dives led the French Navy to assert the danger of this procedure. The controversy is just beginning. The same team from the 2004 Dan study published again in 2006, still following a protocol based on 25-minute exposures at 25 meters, still with a stop at 15 meters, but this time the stop was either shorter or longer. The most favorable bubble score was obtained for a stop of 2.5 minutes. Shorter deep stops result in more bubbles, and longer stops showed little benefit. A symposium held on the subject in Salt Lake City in 2008 did not manage to reconcile the defenders and detractors. Between 2005 and 2006, the NEDU launched a study to compare a traditional decompression protocol to one calculated using a bubble model which included a deep stop. The authors explain that to compare the two profiles, it is necessary to push the tests far enough to trigger enough decompression thicknesses to see a significant difference. The bubble levels of each participant were measured 30 minutes and 2 hours after exposure by cardiac ultrasound, but this data was considered secondary. The results were published in 2011. The 192 dives without a deep stop caused 3 DCAS, while the 198 dives, including a deep stop, triggered 10. The bubble levels confirm this result. The authors conclude that reducing ambient pressure quickly is more beneficial than a deep stop, which was supposed to limit bubble formation and growth. They showed through calculations that a protocol with a deep stop leads to higher saturation in the longer compartments. The idea of limiting supersaturation in compartments was appealing in theory. In practice, it is not recommended for air diving. This does not mean that a procedure with a deep stop should be avoided for mixed gas dives, but even in this case, some studies tend to cast doubt.